Okay, so now that we've made it to the end of Unit 5-6, we sort of know enough elements of programming that we can start to combine these things together to do things that are a little bit interesting. So what I'm going to do here is just combine together some of the repetition stuff and some of the graphics stuff that we've looked at to do something a little bit out of the ordinary. So I've called this graphics_lessons.t, and all we're going to do here is we're going to make a program that draws squares and circles of different size and color on the screen, and then it erases them. I'm going to make the squares have random sizes, and the circles will increase in size. Okay. So first thing I want to do here is I'm going to set the size of my screen. So I'm going to set my screen to have a size that is 500 pixels wide by 400 pixels high. And to do this, I use the command setScreen, and then I pass it the variables graphics, and then a colon, and then 500 semicolon 400. And that'll set it to 500 pixels by 400 pixels. I'll declare some variables here for the position of my box and my circle. So I'm just going to use var x and y, and these have to be integers because I'm going to use them in drawBox and drawCircle commands. And I'm going to declare some variables for the size of the box. We'll say size. And for the color, we use COL. Okay, we can't use the actual word color because that's a reserved keyword in Turing. And notice that before we even start here, I've put all these comments in here to let you know what I'm doing as I go along. This is, of course, called documentation. And once your programs start to get a little bit complicated, you should start including this to let whoever is reading your code, which is me, know sort of how this is working. So we've declared some variables here. Next thing it says here, we're going to draw 20 boxes of random size. And to do that, we're going to use a for loop. So we're going to have for I, and we're going to have this loop go 1 to 20. And then down here, after all of this stuff that we're going to repeat over and over again, I'm going to put my end for. So what are we going to do each time through this loop? Well, we're going to set x to a random number between 0 and the largest x. So I'm going to make it a random integer, and I'm going to store it in x, and it's going to go from 1 to the maximum x is stored in the system variable max x. And I can do rand int y1 to max y. So I've got my x and y values. My side length is going to be random as well, so I'll do rand int size. I'll make that go from 1, so it says 200 to 100. So that'll pick a random number for my size. I'll choose a random number for my color. Rand int COL. Let's just make this go 1 to 100 as well. And now we're actually going to draw the box here. So we're going to use a draw fill box. Remember, the first two numbers are the lower left-hand corner, or one corner from my box. The next two coordinates are the opposite corner of the box. So to do that, we are going to sort of start at x, and we're going to move over by the size of our box, and our y is going to be increased by, again, the size of our box. And the final number we need in here is the color. Then we're going to wait for 0.2 seconds or 200 microseconds. To do that, we use a delay. And the number that we put in the brackets there is the number of microseconds to wait. And then we're going to erase the box after we have drawn it. And the way we do that is by copying that draw fill box command. So we're drawing a box in the exact same location and the exact same size, but we're going to draw it in white. And the color for white, number for white is 0. So that's all the code I need to do the first half of the program. It doesn't look very good right now, but if I hit F2, it'll get nicely indented there. So I can see exactly which code is being repeated here. So let's run this and see what I get. You can see my run window popping up over there, and we can see these random windows, these random squares showing up. And if I wanted to, I could produce more squares, and I could produce them a lot quicker. I could shrink this delay down to 2, then I could run it again, and then get a whole bunch of squares really fast. I need this delay in here because if I take this right out and then run it, everything sort of runs too quickly for me to see. And it's like it draws all the squares and it erases them right away, so I don't really see anything there. So I'm going to put that delay back in there. And, I mean, if you want, you can play around with this a little bit. I'm going to shrink this down to, just back down to 20 here, and make the delay really short. Now, my screen is already cleared here, but if I wanted to clear the screen, I would type CLS, and so we'll put that in there just to make sure that our screen is clear. And now we'll draw 20 circles of increasing size. So we're going to do another for loop here, and for my loop variable, or my counter variable, I'm going to use R here. And I'm going to have this go from 1 to 20, so that's going to be for my 20 circles, and I'll put my end 4 down at the bottom here. Now I'm going to have my circle centered in the middle of the screen. So I'm going to set X and Y to be the middle of the screen. So X, I'm going to make, well, I know max X is the maximum possible X value. So if I divide that by 2, that'll give me sort of the middle of the screen. But because that could give us a 0.5 or a fractional number, I have to round that off. So I have to use round to round this off to the nearest integer, because X and Y have to be integers if we're going to use them in draw a fill oval here. I can do the same thing with Y, but another thing I could do is, instead of using the round command, I could use integer division. Remember, this div command here will take max Y, divide it by 2, and then just truncate off the fractional part, so I'm left with just the integer. Okay, and then we're going to choose a random color again, so I'm just going to copy and paste from up above. And then I'm going to draw my circle here. I'm going to use draw fill oval. I'm going to put it at XY. And then I'm going to use this counter variable R as the radius of my circle. So what's going to happen is R increases from 1 to 20. The radius of my circle is going to increase along with it. And I'll put my color in there as color. And again, we'll stick in our delay here. I'll just copy this delay down and change it to 200 seconds. And of course, then we'll redraw this thing by drawing it in white. And hit F2, and that'll indent it all nicely here. So let's run this and see what happens. There go our squares, and now we can see our slowly growing circles here. Well, my circles didn't grow enough to fill the entire screen, so I want them to grow a little bit faster. So I'm going to go back to my for loop here, and I'm going to change how much this increases by. So I want this to go up to 100. Let's go from 1 to 200, and let's go in steps of 10. Okay, that'll still get us 20 circles. So I'm going from 1 to 200, increasing by 10 each time. And now let's try running this. And there they are. They're growing a little. So it grows up kind of jerkily, and then it clears off the screen at the end. Okay. So that's just a quick example of how you can combine these graphic commands, these loop commands, and the random integer generators to do something a little bit creative here.